The battlefield was silent, save for the distant hum of departing enemy ships. Smoke curled from the craters where Earth's forces had made their last stand. The Galactic Council had declared victory. Humanity was broken, its resistance shattered. Amid the wreckage, a lone soldier lay motionless, his body riddled with wounds. Blood seeped into the dirt beneath him, his breath shallow, almost imperceptible. The aliens had done their calculations, scanned the battlefield, and found no threats remaining. A fatal oversight. Pain jolted him awake. His body screamed in protest, but his mind pushed it aside. His vision blurred, but he forced himself to focus. The sky was a dark canvas of burning debris, the air thick with the stench of death and scorched metal. His squad was gone. Friends, brothers, all erased in a matter of hours. The Council had made one mistake. They left him alive. He clenched his teeth, suppressing the agony in his limbs. This wasn't over. Not for him. His fingers dug into the dirt as he forced himself up, every muscle protesting the movement. His rifle was gone, his gear stripped away, but his will remained intact. He scanned the remains of the battlefield. Alien bodies lay scattered among his fallen comrades. Their arrogance had cost them. They had assumed victory meant safety. They had never faced a human who had nothing left to lose. Gritting his teeth, he dragged himself toward a fallen enemy. A plasma rifle lay beside the corpse, its energy core still humming faintly. He grabbed it, fingers wrapping around the unfamiliar weapon. The weight was different, the grip awkward, but he'd learn. Humans always learned. A distant noise, metallic footsteps. Enemy patrols. He forced himself lower, pressing against the ground, heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't ready to fight. Not yet. First, he needed to survive. Blood loss threatened to pull him under, but he wouldn't give in. With unsteady hands, he tore a strip from his tattered uniform, wrapping it tightly around his worst wound. It wasn't much, but it would do. Pain was secondary. Survival was priority. His mind raced. The Galactic Council saw humans as primitive, predictable. They fought wars with precision, strategy, numbers. But humans were different. They adapted. They endured. They refused to break, even when crushed beneath the weight of impossible odds. He wouldn't die here. Not without a fight. A deep breath steadied him. His body was failing, but his spirit remained unshaken. He wasn't just a soldier anymore. He was the last ember of defiance. The Council had turned their backs, thinking the fire had been extinguished. They were wrong. It was only beginning to burn. The first few hours were the hardest. Every movement sent fresh waves of pain through his body, but stopping wasn't an option. He moved through the ruins, scavenging what he could. Water, rations, anything useful. The dead had no need for supplies, but he did. The plasma rifle felt foreign in his hands, its sleek design unfamiliar. He studied it, testing the weight, adjusting his grip. The Council's technology was superior, but that didn't matter. Weapons were just tools. It was the man wielding them that made the difference. He found a discarded combat knife, its blade still sharp. That felt familiar. A weapon that didn't rely on power cells or alien engineering. Just steel and instinct. He tucked it into his belt. His wounds slowed him, but he pushed forward. The planet was hostile, the air thick with an acrid scent that burned his lungs. He needed shelter. A plan. The Council had left behind scattered patrols, ensuring no survivors remained. That meant time was short. A downed enemy transport caught his eye. The hull was scorched, the cockpit shattered, but the cargo hold was intact. He forced the hatch open and slipped inside. Supplies. Med kits. A lifeline. He wasted no time, stripping off his torn uniform, applying alien medical gel to his wounds. It burned, but within seconds, the bleeding slowed. Advanced technology, now in human hands. He leaned back against the cold metal, forcing slow, measured breaths. His body was weak, but his mind sharpened. He needed a way off this planet. The enemy still had ships, outposts. If he could reach one, he might stand a chance. His fingers traced the grooves of the plasma rifle. He had no training with it, but that didn't matter. He aimed at the wreckage outside, testing the trigger. The shot hissed through the air, striking metal with precision. A weapon built for efficiency, not brute force. He would make it work. Survival wasn't enough. He needed to move, to fight, to strike before they realized their mistake. The Council saw humans as predictable, bound by rules of engagement, limited by strategy. That was their second mistake. A noise outside. Footsteps. He pressed himself against the shadows, heart steady. 2 alien soldiers moved past the wreckage, scanning the area. They spoke in a language he didn't understand, but their intent was clear. Searching. Confirming. He tightened his grip on the rifle. A clean shot would be easy, but that wasn't his way. He waited. Listened. When they turned their backs, he moved. Silent. Precise. The knife met flesh. One fell. Before the second could react, he drove the blade forward again. They had the advantage of numbers. He had the advantage of being underestimated. Dragging the bodies into the wreckage, he searched them for intel. A map, coordinates, key codes. A path to his next move. The first step toward something bigger. He was no longer just surviving. He was hunting. The first kill was the hardest. Not because of hesitation, because of restraint. He wanted them to suffer, to feel the weight of what they had done. But emotion had no place in war. Efficiency did. He took what he needed and moved on. With stolen armor and weapons, he was no longer just a survivor. He was a ghost, slipping through the ruins, striking where they least expected. Patrols began disappearing. Supplies were raided. Security tightened. Fear spread. They had underestimated him. Now, they were afraid of him. The enemy relied on structure, on predictable patterns. He exploited that. They rotated shifts every 6 hours. He struck at the 5th, when exhaustion set in. Their supply drops followed a set route. He intercepted one, ambushing the transport crew before they could react. The Council's forces communicated through encrypted channels. He found a fallen officer, pried the communicator from its body, and listened. Panic. Confusion. They thought it was an organized resistance. A surviving squad. They couldn't fathom the truth, that one wounded human was dismantling them piece by piece. He moved constantly, never striking the same place twice. He learned their weapons, their tactics, their weaknesses. Plasma rifles overheated after prolonged use. Their armor was strong but had gaps at the joints. Their vision relied on motion tracking, making stillness a weapon in itself. Each encounter honed his skills. A lone scout fell in the night, throat slit before it could call for backup. A supply outpost was rigged to explode, taking an entire platoon with it. The aliens, so reliant on overwhelming firepower, had no answer for a soldier who fought like a predator. Then he found the transmission. A stolen datapad revealed an incoming fleet, set to arrive in less than 2 days. Not reinforcements. An extermination force. The Council wasn't taking chances this time. They were going to erase all traces of human resistance, starting with the planet itself. Earth was next. He clenched his fists, forcing his breathing steady. They thought this world was lost. They thought the fight was already over. They were wrong. Stealing a ship wasn't a choice anymore. It was a necessity. His fight wasn't just for revenge. It wasn't just survival. It was a warning. They thought one human couldn't make a difference. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The enemy outpost was heavily guarded, but that didn't matter. He wasn't here for a fair fight. He was here to win. Moving through the shadows, he studied their patterns. Guard rotations. Blind spots. Entry points. The stolen armor helped, but it wouldn't fool them for long. He needed speed, precision, and absolute brutality. The first guard never saw the knife. The second barely had time to register the attack before a plasma bolt silenced him. He dragged the bodies out of sight and slipped deeper inside. The shipyard was close. He could hear the low hum of docked vessels, the constant chatter of pilots preparing for departure. He kept moving. The longer he lingered, the higher the risk. 2 more soldiers crossed his path. He ducked into cover, gripping his rifle. His instincts screamed at him to attack, but not yet. He let them pass, then moved in behind them. A quick, silent execution. Efficiency over emotion. The control room was just ahead. He needed access to launch protocols. Without it, any stolen ship would be locked down before it ever left the atmosphere. A terminal flickered in the dim light. He plugged in the stolen keycodes, watching as layers of security fell away. Red warning texts flashed, unauthorized access detected. No time to be subtle. A klaxon blared. He was exposed. Heavy footsteps thundered toward him. He turned, rifle raised, and fired. The first wave dropped before they could react. The second opened fire, plasma bolts scorching the walls as he dove for cover. A shot seared his shoulder, but he ignored the pain, returning fire with ruthless precision. The hallway was a graveyard by the time he was done. He reloaded, ignoring the burn of his injuries. No time to stop. The shipyard doors loomed ahead. He sprinted forward, alarms still screaming. More soldiers rushed to intercept, but he was faster. Smarter. Deadlier. He rolled beneath incoming fire, taking them down before they could regroup. His eyes locked onto a sleek fighter, its engines idling, ready for takeoff. Perfect. He vaulted onto the ramp, slamming his fist against the controls. The hatch sealed behind him as more enemies swarmed the hangar. They fired as the ship lifted, plasma rounds scorching the hull, but it was too late. He was airborne. The comms crackled. A panicked alien voice barked orders. Lock down the airspace. Shoot him down. He smirked. Let them try. His fingers flew over the controls, navigating by instinct. Enemy ships scrambled to intercept, but they were too slow. Too predictable. He weaved between them, using their own formations against them. Plasma fire streaked past, missing by inches. The atmosphere thinned. The stars stretched out before him. He opened a channel to the Council's command ship, his voice calm despite the chaos behind him. You should have finished the job. Then he punched the thrusters, heading for Earth. The war wasn't over. It was just beginning.